Hello, welcome to the Play Typer Guy podcast. I'm Stephen Robinson, and joining me is my friend Laramie Dean, author and playwright of seasonally appropriate material, particularly Black Forest, a wonderful piece of um, right there for those watching. Black Forest, a wonderful piece of gothic queer horror. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, as we were discussing before we started recording, we sort of did a tribute to the great Lara Parker, who played the witch Angelique on Dark Shadows, one of my favorite characters in fiction and everything. I'm obviously a huge Dark Shadows fan, a huge fan of her. Now I thought we could discuss witches in general, because I'm a huge fan of as we go into Halloween, a huge fan of witches in fiction, from the weird sisters in Macbeth to Maleficent and to the evil queen in Snow White. She didn't have a name, but she had my heart. I adored her. I've been enjoying the wonderful, as anyone who watches my Facebook feed, the wonderful Catherine Hahn as Agatha Harkness on the new Marvel show, Agatha All Along. Have you been watching that?
Religiously, if you'll pardon the expression. Yes. Every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, we wait tremulously, and then it appears. And can we talk about spoilery things?
Oh yes, please do. I will give every sort of note, but yes.
One of
And
my
I know,
students today was
yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm going to start watching Agatha All Along. I realized that it's all the Marvel lore," and I was like, "Well, as somebody that knows very little to nothing about Marvel anything, I'm a DC guy. Um, I have just been I loved WandaVision. I'm also a big witch in fiction fan. I love Angelique, and I love Samantha from Bewitched, and so Agatha or WandaVision. Immediately, that first episode, the first couple episodes, I was just sucked in, and then I became a Scarlet Witch fan, and um, I like Joe Locke. I like the character of Wiccan, and I was very excited for that twist, which they finally
Yes.
revealed last week. So yeah, yes, and Catherine Hahn, loved her since Parks and Recreation, and it's been great to see her really stretch her acting chops a lot too. And Agatha is scary and funny.
Yeah, Billy Kaplan, who Joe Locke plays, is interesting. He plays him as a 13-year-old. Actually, convincingly, the actor's 20, and he plays the 16-year-old. What's hilarious is that he's English or somewhere that's not America. And in interviews, when he's doing the accent, his normal accent, he sounds 30. Like, I don't like, well, he's a 30-year-old man, but he's obviously 20. But it's something about the accent. I think sometimes actors don't get credit for, because the first time we see them, we assume a lot of that character, especially if it's naturalistic, we assume that there's just, oh, that's mostly
Yeah.
that person, and it's really not. He is not like
Well,
teen.
have you watched Heartstopper? Have you seen him on Heartstopper?
No, I haven't, but I've heard good
He's
things
very
about.
different. He's very different, and this is only the second thing that I'm not sure if he's done more, but it's the second thing I've seen him on. And we just watched the recent season of Heartstopper right before this, and I was really impressed. Yeah, his American accent is it's reminiscent of when you listen to the Big Finish Dark Shadows audio plays, which I'm a huge fan of as well. God bless you, Big Finish. But a lot of times those British actors, their accents but I think they feel the same way about us when we try to do a British dialect, and it does not turn out very well. So yeah, I love Joe Locke. And I think there's been rumors about him playing Wiccan forever, because of course he looks a lot like the comic book character, and then of course Kit Connor, from who plays his boyfriend on Heartstopper, looks very much like Hulkling.
Mhm.
So there are all these rumors. I had read that they were going to pair them up, but I think Kit Connor has come out and said, "Yeah, we're not going to do another show where we are in a relationship. Heartstopper was it.
Oh, right. He is the character Wiccan, who is queer, was Wanda Maximoff's son in the comics and here. So it's just wonderful to, he's queer in the show, and it's wonderful to see that. Always some sort of like, as someone who's 50 years old, I grew up in a time where I love that this is in certain ways taken for granted. This sort of representation that you just would not have seen as comfortable or as casual, as not an issue. That's not what the show is even about.
Which is interesting though, because I've also read that there is not a ton of queer representation in the MCU, and I'm not super familiar with it. But Agatha herself is also seems to have something going on with Aubrey Plaza's character, which I'm very interested to see. You're a Buffy fan too, aren't you?
Yes, and they did, which is there, and again, that was very much linked to Wicca and queerness and the sort of feminist identity. And this is sort of, they're also doing the queerness, but also it's not. There had been a period, again, as a guy in his who's 50, who's watched a lot of media and watched this transition of queerness often being sort of a code for a character who's already naughty.
Yep.
So the great contrast here, of course, is that it's not there. It's just he's a guy with a boyfriend, and it's normal, and that's what's wonderful about the representation. It's not coded to be that, oh, he's naughty. Certainly with, and it comes sort of things with perhaps targeted towards the male gaze, to have a bad girl interested in another bad girl. They're not doing that either. It really is a nourish sense of these two have a history, and it's not necessarily meant to titillate. It's just sort of like an old, if you like old film noir or old sort of detective shows or something, or any sort of heist films. And that's why I was asking you about this, because what I like about this is someone who likes evil witches. We'll talk about my liking evil witches when we discuss WandaVision and Scarlet Witch's direction. That often the link between sort of witches being sort of code for a minority group, even going back to Bewitched, and sort of the good witches, which are nice, and I love the idea of seeing that as the witch, as the outcast or whatever. But again, as someone who loves Maleficent, who loved and arguably the complexity of Angelique, I like that these witches, and of course, for someone like me, the great Patti LuPone is in this, and she's wonderful. Everyone, it's plays like a heist film, so it's sort of like they're criminals, they're like people in on the wrong side of the law, and the sort of code within that.
It seems like a very kind of a fresher take, I would say. It's interesting, the connection to Salem. I know that you and I are both big fans of Danny Horn's Dark Shadows Everyday blog. I know he talks a lot about unfortunately Salem was real, and everything that happened was real. And so I always love when Salem witches are incorporated into some kind of fiction, when the witches turn out to actually be having powers. And so Danny's blog about how it's actually like not amazing to do that.
It presents the idea that these women who are persecuted were persecuted for perhaps good reason. Often shows, again, going back to Bewitched, shows that have dealt upon that have, of course, said that there's nothing wrong with witchcraft, there's nothing wrong with them. So it's sort of essentially taking that persecution and making it sort of about persecuting a minority group on top of being women, and essentially persecuting women who have power and so forth. Though Agatha does make it more difficult, because Agatha probably should have been prosecuted for many of her crimes, So
how many people has she murdered?
She tries to count and she loses track. I love that, because she didn't get a lot of time as herself with Wanda.
WandaVision,
She
yeah.
did, she's playing a part. She's a great con artist, right? She's playing a part through most of WandaVision, and then there's the one episode where she does sort of the flashback. She guides Wanda through her past, and then of course the final battle, but we don't really get the two of them together. I've always argued that what the Scarlet Witch desires, what she's trying to desire in both WandaVision and in Multiverse of Madness, is not necessarily her children or whatever. It's very much sort of like Gatsby, where it's the idea of like the American dream.
Mm.
This is what I want. So it's sort of like, I don't really want to be with, it's less about being with the children, the infinite amount of children I have out there. It's like, I just want to take that woman's life and I'm willing to kill her and replace her and be this person. I don't want to be me. And Agatha is someone who's very much like, no, this is who I am. Which makes what Wanda did to her very much sort of fate worse than death. I'm making you live a lie when you're someone who's, despite your flaws, has never really lived a lie. You've just been who you are.
And that's even more evil than like
Yes,
what Agatha could come up with.
it's
It's
well,
pretty dark.
it's effed up. And I know a lot of people objected to, they said, like, how could the Scarlet Witch would go evil? And it's interesting because my wife is someone who doesn't do much of the comics and whatever. And the idea that would ever be a surprise, that she went bet, was just like, well, her name. And it's like, to her, that just reads like Captain Bad Guy. Like, well, obvious. Well, yeah, she's Scarlet Witch. That means you're bad. Like, no, it's complicated in the comics. She would bad here,
Yeah.
but like in the MCU, she definitely is a character who is sort of driven by revenge or wanting things, and gets
Well, and so
radicalized
she
easily.
imprisoned that entire town, right? She forced them all to sort of dance to the
Yes,
tune of, right. And I know you and I have also talked about Vertigo, Hitchcock's Vertigo, and we've talked about the Barnabas the vampire kidnapping Maggie Evans, who looks just like his
yes,
lost love, which is a storyline I've just been rewatching. Um, and I had never really consciously thought about the connections between Dark Shadows and Vertigo till you brought it up to me. And I was talking about it with one of my students today because we're going to start studying Vertigo in my intermediate theater class next week. And the kids always are like, they've never seen a movie like this before, and the twist gets them, and they're always a little confused, like who's dead, who's not dead, was she dead the whole time? I'm like, no, no, no.
hmm
But I think the really horrifying thing in all three of these stories have in common too is this: people with the power to impose their will on many other people and rewriting their personalities against their will. And that
oh
to me
yeah,
is just really scary and horrifying. And in Vertigo, there's
it's
no
yeah,
magic power. Yeah, there's no magic power. It's just this guy's obsession. And then Wanda is motivated by grief, correct?
yeah.
Like her husband, her beloved husband had died. Is he a robot? He's a robot, right?
But
Something.
he's essentially, he's human. It's like, he's what makes us
She
human.
loved him very much, and he died. And
But the idea, like with Vertigo, as you were saying, that concept was, it's so horrible that Hitchcock makes a distinct choice to reveal that she is essentially a bad person.
yeah, for the
out
last 30 minutes of the
she
movie.
and it's brilliant storytelling. Not to tell you how to teach your class, but it's brilliant
Oh
storytelling
no, we talk
because
about this. We
that
talk about
allows
this.
the audience to no longer hate
Yep.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
no, you've been a victim of her. She was
Yep.
part of this guy came to her and said, hey, do you want to dress up this way so we can frame this guy for, or make him the patsy
She
in
was
our
in on
part
it the
of
whole time.
killing a
Yeah.
woman. So it makes us feel like, okay, that, and also that what he's doing to her is almost a punishment she is deserving.
Yeah.
So the
We
audience,
watch it, and the kids always feel, they always feel bad for Judy because Scotty's obviously forcing her to do this stuff. And then we talk about the Judy writes the letter scene where I always ask them, in a world where we're so used to like M. Night Shyamalan with a big twist, right? That the big twist comes at the end. Why do you think Hitchcock placed the twist where he did, and then we talk about how we are aware that Judy was complicit in this whole thing. And so we watch her being punished unknowingly. Scotty doesn't know until he sees the necklace that she has the necklace on.
Yeah.
But it is, and it makes you feel complicated and icky because Judy isn't just a one-dimensional bad guy. She's not like a gun mall. She's, she loves Scotty, and I always ask them, like, what do you think? Do you think it could have worked out for those crazy kids?
Well,
Always like,
and there's that queer theme too, as I'd read the idea that he's in love with something that doesn't exist. This woman
mm,
never existed. It is what another man created. He's in love with
mm,
Gavin Elster's creation. And it's sort of with like how Barnabas is sort of, and certainly the complexity of the fact that he's being played by a queer actor, but he
mm.
is someone who is, there's almost sort of a non-sexualization of he's essentially, when he creates Josette, he's primping, the room has to be perfect and whatever. It's like
Brush.
he might as well, he's like someone collecting Judy Garland memorabilia, like you know what I mean, like it's not, and this is what her room had looked
No,
like, and this,
totally. Oh, it absolutely is. It's and I think if you go back in Dark Shadows nerds, you will enjoy this. If you go back and you watch 1795, I believe Barnabas the Romantic a little bit more. In 1967, he reads a lot like an older queer dude who is like, yeah, he kidnapped a woman who looked like Judy Garland, and now he's trying to recreate Dorothy and this poor actress,
yeah, it's
or
almost like
poor
he
person.
wants to be Josette, and he's making her Josette as a way of him
Well, that's the
being
next
her and
step.
living, and that's fascinating, and sort of, and bringing it back to WandaVision, like, it's more of when we talk about choices that creators make. So Jack Schaefer has I think, who created WandaVision, Agatha, has expressed some concerns that, oh, this is about grief and meditation. I mean, it was always curious to me. It's like, well, you made distinct choices because, like, if someone had a nervous breakdown and put you and me in an episode of Friends or whatever our favorite show was, and we were well, whatever your favorite show is, I'm pretty people think but like we would
I mean,
you
put an
could
episode of Friends sounds like a nightmare to me.
do that in a way to make us happy. So there was
Sure.
totally a way to have written that. It's after the blip in the MCU. They show that Westview was sort of a town that had been suffered during that. Like, it is distressed, it's kind of run down. So you can make it that everyone's happy with this illusion. They're kind of
Mm,
happy. It's sort of like Pleasantville, and that's a different context. Here they make it that she is torturing them. That, like, they are expressing pain that we've not seen from any other. If you go back to the whole history of MCU, any other villain, we've never gotten a moment where someone is like, just kill me. I think this is one of the Vision releases, and he's just like, let me die. Like, that is tough. And Wanda already has in the comics, the Scarlet Witch has ability just to rewrite reality. They get to that because that was sort of, at first it was thought to be too weird for,
mm.
Marvel was still kind of taking these baby steps from Iron Man and sort of what's plausible. It's like to do outright magic felt like, okay, that's going to be much. So they had it sort of that she um, can control your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But what starts to be seen, and again, what has been shown, is that's mental rape, like a complete violation. And again, we see it in
Absolutely.
WandaVision, where she comes out of the hex. She says, "Leave me alone. I'm going to keep my hostages. I'm going to keep my show." And then she controls the minds of the sword operatives, and they turn their guns on, their boss. No matter what you think of their boss, it's not something they want to do.
Right.
So she already sort of has a power that is inherently rapey and creepy and bad. And then the show makes a choice to put it writ large. It's a really bad type
And
of
I guess
thing.
at least in Vertigo, Judy goes along with it not because she's being forced to by, like I said, magic or mental domination. She's in love with Scotty, which also makes it like a little more pathetic, I think. Like she's whoever Judy Barton was, whoever Judy as Madeline was. Now we have this new creature who um is going along with Scotty because she loves him. Like she says, I'll wear the darn clothes and I'll do my hair. Just, just love me. And then we see her right before she puts the necklace on. They have this really nice moment. They're going to go to dinner and she looks just like Madeline, but she acts like Judy. It's creepy. It's creepy and unsettling. And then when you've seen it, I know you know this movie. When you've seen it enough times, you know it's going to come, and it just makes it even sadder. And actually, I was thinking the other day because, like I said, the I don't know a lot of the lore of the MCU, but watching the last episode of Agatha, where Billy and his boyfriend are going to meet the
Evan Peters, Ralph
Evan Peters,
Boner,
yeah.
Boner.
Jesus. They're gonna meet that character and they just accept the fact that there's magic and a hex. And then I was like, oh well, this is all the same world, right? So there's superheroes and there's the X-Men and right, this is all so there's mutants and there's Jean Grey, who's the Dark Phoenix.
They don't have mutants in this world yet. They're going to introduce them to that's a separate universe. This is the world without. So Wanda herself is not a mutant. Her origin is slightly different.
I just was wondering, and I was going to ask you, what is the difference between like Jean Grey and Wanda? Like, what's the difference? Is it just Jean Grey can manipulate things on a cellular level?
She her mind.
Magic?
Well, and mind control was never really in the comics, so there is some sort of connection of because they've really played up a sort of MCU specific power base that she has, ability to control minds. What is interesting, because I certainly appreciate the point you had made about the idea of like women getting power and going crazy with it.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a minute.
And that's something that I like that there's a balance. It's also a universe with Captain Marvel, who's a powerful woman. It's a universe with Shuri, who's a new Black Panther, who's powerful. What I find interesting with Dark Phoenix, Jean Grey in the comics is essentially a pure, wonderful woman, and the story, and this has been retconned and changed and different things, but originally the idea is that once she gains absolute power, she can't handle it and cracks, but she's an innocent girl who this power, having great power, just corrupts her. And there's obviously a lot of coded gender issues with that and problems with that. To the extent that I put Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, and the Maleficent and camp, and I'm more comfortable with that, is that she is someone who's always sort of been presented. Again, her primary motivation, her first appearance, the Avengers, is she's motivated by revenge. She wants to hurt Tony Stark and destroy all the Avengers because of what happened to her as a child. And there's a wonderful scene a very young Elizabeth Olsen plays where she's seeing Tony fall into her trap and she smiles, and it's like she's enjoying what she's about to unleash. So I've always seen her as a sort of a Darth Vader in that realm, and it's very interesting. And that is fun. And she's chaos magic, and chaos characters are interesting to me because you plop them in. What can you can do any story with them?
Yeah,
because they're chaos.
Anything can happen. That's Angelique in 1897 is very much like that.
If it suits her needs, she's going to help Barnabas and Quentin. She's not totally a bad guy. Whereas Nicholas Blair was a character who's like, no, he's always going to do this. That makes him a bit more dull in situations. And
absolutely. I think my problem with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is I came to Buffy first, and Buffy was this huge part of my college experience and growing up, and I was the same age as the Scoobies almost, and so I really identified with them. And here's Willow, and she's queer, and she's a queer character on TV, one of the very first positive queer depictions. And then they go and they do the dead lesbian, evil lesbian stereotype, the trope.
Yes.
And like I'm always mad because I love it so much. I love Dark Willow. Dark Willow is awesome. The black eyes are cool. The all the stuff she does. And Allison Hannigan gets to act her socks
Oh
off
yeah,
as the,
it's a
be dark and
wonderful
horrible and cry.
scene.
Yeah, totally. So I already knew that, where I was like, okay, so Willow Giles can handle magic, Willow can't handle magic.
Yes.
Okay, check.
And it's
So
very
then
much not choices that she can't handle. They're very much making a point of like even having Tara say, you can't handle it. It's more of like you can't handle this, as opposed to her just making choices.
right.
I loved Evil um Angel, that storyline, and then Evil Spike, and then they're seeking redemption. Those are
Mhm.
interesting stories. With Willow, it was sort of in a different direction because it was sort of um the implication was more of what you were saying, which was that they can't
And so
handle.
I'd already seen that, and then to watch WandaVision, I didn't know about I've only seen the Wanda character played by Elizabeth Olsen in WandaVision. Oh, and
Yeah.
Doctor Strange. Because I really loved, I'm such a big fan of serialized narrative, and if I find especially queer elements, and I was like, well, obviously she's children, and they're going to do this Wiccan storyline. They made a big deal about saying, oh, the kids grow so fast. It just seems to make sense to me. So I was really excited about that. And doesn't WandaVision end with her in a cabin somewhere and she hears the kids' voices? Is that
Yes,
I need to rewatch, I need to
well,
rewatch it.
she's with the Darkhold, which obviously
Which is
doesn't.
that scary book, right?
Yeah,
That
so that's
Yeah,
not
okay.
going in the right direction. Um, yeah, I think it's cool that that was your first exposure to her. I'm a sort of a longtime fan of the character since I was a kid, and um, love the Halloween episode because she's wearing the comic book outfit, which is sort of
Yeah.
if you're a
It's
comic
funny
book
how I
geek, it's like
recognize that.
it's like, oh wow, she's in the comic book costume, yay!
Well, and
And of
not
course,
knowing,
she
I still was like, "Oh, that's the." So to then watch the Doctor Strange movie where I thought that she was such a complex character in WandaVision and so interesting, and then I felt like it was just this Dark Willow story again, where Doctor Strange also is suffering from loss and grief, correct? And he also
yeah.
has intense magical powers, correct? So I was very much like, well, why didn't we switch it? Why didn't we have Doctor Strange? And I don't know a lot about Doctor Strange, so maybe it wouldn't make sense. But I was like, why not have him be the person that can't handle the magic? Why can't it be him
Mhm.
that is so stricken by grief that he's off doing crazy things? And then Wanda's like, hey, I went through this. I know what this is
Oh
like. Let
yeah,
me help you out of this.
and I
Why we
get and
couldn't have gone that direction?
I totally get that. I think they were going in a different way of like him helping America, like stepping back. So if you'd watched him in other films, he's someone who feels like I have to make the choice, and this was being like it's interesting because and yeah, I totally get the idea of like it being it's less about not handling magic and more that she's someone who's making selfish choices, which sort of tracks with her background. But what I thought was great was because there are folks online who was like, oh, I wish she'd been the sidekick and helping Strange. And there are others who would say, okay, well, now you're just reducing her to helping
Yeah.
a man get through his problem. I just love that she's not a sidekick. She is the scariest MFing villain in the that anyone has faced in the MCU, to the point where Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, all he can say is run. Like there's a big scene of where that's his plan. It's like not stand and fight, like no, run. So
Yeah,
like
and it's very Dark
that
Willow too. That's what happens in the Buffyverse is that
she's
she's
that
unstoppable.
powerful.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to have a who can then still be a form of chaos. That was never and also Dark Willow is so drawn a lot of it was self-loathing. It's like I am Dark Willow because I
Mm.
hate myself, and just a lot of the
Mhm.
stuff of I hate myself as opposed to I'm being bad. I'm like it's like being on a drug where it's
Mhm.
just like she's Scarlet Witch is just powerful and she's a selfish person taking she wants to exploit a young girl of color to have her suburban dream. That's what she's gonna do.
Ah!
And she's
Hmm, that sounds a lot like what the last election, or the 2 elections ago 2 elections ago was like, and what better not happen again this time? White
yes.
women of America, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
So she's very I do find that compelling it and it's just the idea that she is that powerful, like she
Mhm.
is, um and as someone who likes horror films, so like she's part of she's part of a jump scare. The whole thing, she comes out of the mirror, like things are kind of cool to see her do this as presented by Sam Raimi, who's someone I've always enjoyed,
Yeah.
is sort of cool. And again, because she's chaos, that doesn't preclude her coming back in different forms and different places, and to see
Do you
her
think
from different perspectives.
do
So
you think she's gonna show up in Agatha? I feel like she has to. I feel like she's gonna
I don't
show
know.
up.
I don't know. I wonder if it's just going to be about Billy and Tommy, and if the last episode was more about he doesn't remember Wanda. He has the feeling for
His
Tommy,
brother.
and it's going to be about
Yeah.
that. And I, it'd be quite a surprise. It would be quite a shock. It's yeah, going back to Catherine Hahn, it's Agatha Harkness, this character of someone who has sort of embraced kind of who she is after sort of her society, and even her own mother as like, you're terrible, you're bad, you've always been bad, you've wanted the wrong thing. So it's sort of cool to sort of see her embrace that and be someone, well, we can't trust her, but it makes it very compelling to watch to see what she's going to do
Yeah.
next. What is she up to? what is
I was
what is her
actually
next
really happy
scheme?
that so far they haven't tried to turn her into a like, they haven't neutered her, I guess, to
Yeah.
to be gross about the metaphor. Um, that she's like that moment where she looks at Billy and says, "You're just like your mother." And I went, "Oh." And Catherine Hahn, you know Parks and Recreation,
Mhm.
yeah, when she was Jen Barkley. And it's funny because the characters are so different, but they're it's Catherine Hahn being I mean, Jen Barkley doesn't care. She's like, "I'm gonna tell you this because I don't care enough to lie." Which is so funny because it is, like you said, it's Agatha. I think it's funny that it took the producers so long to come up with the title. I was like, "That title is looking right at you." Like, we all loved
Yeah.
that song when that song came out, and they wanted to call it,
Yeah.
like, Agatha, Mother of Darkness, or like
Yeah, I think that I've heard a theory that that was all trolling.
I would hope so.
Like the title was always, so it's
It'll
Agatha,
be
Coven
Agatha
of
all
Chaos.
along.
No, no, the title was always Agatha all along. What do you think you were going to call it? But Agatha Westview, um, which I think,
Well,
yeah, Agatha of Eastview was a sort of show, but like it's just
that
a cool concept.
that Witch's Road song too, that was also really smart. I was like, "Yes, make a song that we all wanna watch the video, we all wanna learn it."
To me, the better villain is the one where you get their movie. It's
Yep.
their movie. And if you were watching their movie, you would be like, oh, I get it. I get why you want this and this. And I get why this person is an obstruction to it. It's just that what you want is bad. Um, you know, like with Captain Hook, if a kid chopped my hand off and threw it to a crocodile, I would
You
kind of
might be a
have to
little
kill him.
peeved. Yeah, I
I
get
would
it.
have to kill him. Um, there's nothing else. This is all I've got. I've got a hook for a hand now.
No, I actually
Um,
told my students today we were talking this into the woods with the giant's wife who is like stomping around and killing people, and I said, "Well, does she have a motivation?" And the kids were like, "Yeah, Jack climbed up and robbed her and then murdered her husband." And I was like, "I feel like I'm supposed to tell you guys revenge is wrong, but I know that if somebody ever did anything to hurt my husband, um, it would be scorched earth." And I think this is why I identify so much with Angelique and Dark Willow and Wanda, where it's like they have the ability to take revenge easily. Easily. There's no I mean, Willow, like, skins a guy like that.
mhm.
Um, uh, it's interesting that they're women consistently, and I will be interested to see what happens with Billy Maximoff. That's pretty close, by the way, to the comic book, right? What happened to him? That there was a Billy Williams.
It's much more streamlined. So here,
Mm,
Wanda apparently has created a human soul. They were real. Doctor Strange was wrong. So one of the things was sort of he was
Mm.
saying you don't have children. They're fake, like you made them up. Like what are you talking about? But here they clearly had a soul, a human soul that went into this other kid.
This other
Uh,
Billy.
yeah. Fortunately for Padley Pone created a sigil because the nice Kaplans would have been dead meat if Wanda knew her son was now
Oh,
this boy.
here's my other question too, by the way. Who's gay? Is Billy Maximoff gay? Or is Billy Kaplan gay? Were they both gay? Was it a coincidence that a gay kid who kind of looked like Wiccan and also was named Billy just happened to be driving by in time to die, I guess, right? He died.
Um,
He died in the car
it's
accident.
it's a fascinating sense of like how much of that soul is him and who is it. Like it's sort of an existential this question, like of how much he says he doesn't remember
Mm-hmm.
Bill, but how much of that is our minds compared to our bodies.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting concept. I mean, he's clearly so far he seems to be a lot of Billy Maximoff based on his powers and preferences and so forth. But no, I mean, I
Be
hope
really
they will
interested to
explore
see
that.
what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah. I also
Uh,
love his room decor. I love that he has that set of Wizard of Oz books. Did you notice that? Those white.
yes.
Yes. When I was a kid, the library in Glasgow, Montana, which is where my family is all from, and I would go visit my grandparents, and we would go down to the library, and I would religiously check out that particular set of books. Like they had them for years, and now they're gone. And I saw them in an antique store recently for some ridiculous amount of money. But I saw them, and I was like, "Oh, you were a kid after my own heart."
Oh yeah, like he's interested in a lot of and what we've seen on the road so far is reflective of his sort of pop cultural preferences. I mean, even the 19th the album cover, he has the album cover that influenced the rock
I
music area.
didn't notice that. See, I gotta go
Um,
back and rewatch all of this. I need to rewatch
yeah,
WandaVision. I probably
if
should rewatch Doctor Strange.
but his thing is he is so it'd be interesting how much of that is his own doing or his
Yeah.
inflection. But I love the mystery. You talked about serialized storytelling and that appealing to you perhaps even more than movies. And I think that is I was talking to a friend of mine about that. Like streaming has sort of changed the idea of like, so what is a movie, right? Because
Yeah.
there are those that Quentin Tarantino says a movie, Vertigo because it's on a big screen, and that's how you saw it. Like I didn't, I've seen Vertigo in a movie theater. I sought that out the first chance I got, but um, when I first saw it, it was
On the
in my
TV.
house on my
Yeah.
TV, and
Yeah, me
that
too.
it was still. Is it because it's feature length? Is it how like what makes it a movie? And what makes a TV show? TV show? Do you break it up? I mean, I found that some of my least favorite streaming shows have been where it felt like, well, this is like a 7-hour movie that just stopped and like
Mhm.
45-minute increments. And I do think serialized narrative benefits from kind of build up. And something that WandaVision did was it didn't release all at once. Same with most of the MCU shows, but that ability, especially with online, to kind of have the water cooler, to have those discussions, because that the show would be entirely different. If you think about how we engage with media, it'd be entirely
Yep.
different if WandaVision and this was just, okay, it's midnight, here's all this 10 episodes,
And
and you
I was
watch them
having that
all in one night.
conversation. Yeah. My husband is bigger Heartstopper fan than I am, and he every time one of the new seasons has come out, he'll stay up and he'll watch the whole thing in a row. And I, meanwhile, I want my narrative parsed out to me. I am really happy that Agatha is one episode a week, and then I'm watching it in real time. I think WandaVision, I definitely watched like it was all done by the time
Mhm.
I watched it. Um, or something like Dark Shadows, which is impossible to consume like a movie. You can't. There's way too much of it. I guess unless you're Patrick McCray and you
Yeah.
spend,
But you know that's
weeks.
even a show I found comfort in experiencing it, even if I was watching in a way of where I was watching it with other people. So the Sci-Fi Channel, you would, and if you went online to date myself in the mid '90s on the groups, people were usually talking about the episodes as they aired. So you were experiencing it together.
Yeah.
Same with when they were re-released on DVD, and then like anyone who was reading Danny Horn's blog, I think that was the second time I watched the whole show again because I was watching them as
he was doing them.
as he's doing them, and people were talking about them. I think there's something about that connecting with something that way, and then yes, the mystery of it. So here I would be like to stop and like to have no mystery, to have my enjoyment of it would be very different. I mean, similar if I think I was able to experience. I was reviewing WandaVision for the AV Club at the time, and I was watching. I was having it. We didn't get screener, so I had to get up like midnight, whenever it aired, you know, and watch it and whatever, and then try to file it. So it was like a period where I loved it enough that, you know, my wife was supportive of me, like setting an alarm at like whatever. Sleep.
Oh, that's so late.
yes, for a middle-aged man, yes. So I realized how dated myself.
Are you freaking kidding me? It was very brave of you to get up to watch WandaVision.
It was fun, but it was like you were looking for, like, you know, the whole week of to have that time, especially to connect with people about it. It is really cool, and I think that is something.
It's so Twin Peaks. It's what caught America's imagination in 1990. This, water cooler is exactly what it is. Where you sit around and you talked about this show, and there is something really fun about anticipating it. And Ryan, my husband, disagrees with me. He wants to binge everything right away, and I'm like, no, I want to anticipate. I want to not know, and then I want to go back and rewatch the whole thing again. And I think we're gonna watch WandaVision again. I've seen it through twice, but I don't retain things the way that I used
enjoy.
to.
Yeah, Adam Conover, the comedian and who did the show Adam Ruins Everything, he was talking about the whole binging thing, and it was like, but why do you do this? It's not even it's a verb of something that is not particularly good for you. And that's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's right. It's like I wouldn't say, hey, Laramie, do you want to come over? Let's drunk drive this movie. Like, what? Let's drunk drive this series of Hitchcock films. Really? I don't know. I don't want to do this.
Sometimes it feels like that. Let's talk about evil witches. I know you want to talk about evil witches.
Yes, let's get into that.
My very first favorite character ever was, where is she? The Wicked Witch of the West. And I do love Wicked. I do. But the kids, my students, will often conflate all versions of the Wicked Witch of the West with this musical character who I feel was severely neutered again from what she was in Gregor Maguire's book, but also the Baum novels. I love the Wicked Witch of the West from the movie because she's terrifying. She's rabid. She spends the whole movie with laser-like focus.
Oh yeah.
And she's frightening as hell. And I wasn't scared of her when I was a kid. I wanted to be her. And so I think that is where my fascination with witches comes from. And definitely Maleficent. Sleeping Beauty, Disney released Sleeping Beauty on video when I was probably 7 or 8. And I already knew her from Disney storybooks. Now that her horns were cool and her milky green skin or blue, whatever it was. But I definitely do like my witches to be terrifying.
No, yeah, there's a great moment in The Wizard of Oz. I remember, of course, I was watching this as a kid, but one of my first airings, being put on behind the couch moment, is there on the road is Dorothy and the others, and the witch is there. They don't know she's there. I think she's hiding behind a tree.
Yeah,
and it's scary because she's present and they aren't. And of course, later I would realize that's suspense. That is one, but it's really also to sort of go back to that gangster analogy. When in Multiverse Rise, when she's killing other sorcerers, even she's killing the Illuminati, you could just say she's just killing cops. So it's like, not that I support killing cops. I'm just saying it's like if you watch The Godfather, you identify essentially they're only killing other gangsters, they're only killing other bad people or a corrupt cop. And this whole movie is about her wanting to kill a kid who didn't even take her.
Big no. It's story.
It's very hard to get. Yeah, well, and she didn't even take her shoes. So, like the Wicked Witch. I mean, that is like no, you took my shoes. That I think that's a established sense of that is that's fair grounds to kill Dorothy.
Well, those shoes were supposed to come to me, so I'm gonna follow you to hell and back to get them.
I'm her. I don't.
I have watched my both.
I'm her next. I'm her next of kin.
Yes, I've watched these people fight over their parents' belongings, and it's like, no, this is real. Like this is the thing that people do. Oh, I was watching. I watched Sleepy Hollow again the other night, the Tim Burton movie. It's me killing kids, and I had forgotten that the horseman kills the adorable little redheaded kid. Do you remember this scene? He goes to kill the midwife and her husband, and then the little boy's hiding, and you think, wow, they're not going to kill her. Oh my God, they did. He walks out of the house and puts the kid's head in a bag. I was like, oh, that is like the number one rule. You can't kill kids and you can't kill puppies.
Yes, it's I mean, she has her reasons for
all of that. What does she say? I
killed Sparky.
No, I really did bite a kid once.
We
actually have bitten kids before.
Well, we also don't know. I mean, we have not. Her on-screen body count has been rather low. We've seen her kill other cops, other witches, other gangsters. But we've and then we learned in the last episode that she couldn't kill the dog herself. Now
she had Ralph do it,
which is like the huntsman
with Snow White.
Snow White bringing the. I just brought a pig's heart because he didn't trust. Because the queen. But he didn't. And she couldn't just do it to match. She had to I guess, the poison it. So it had to be done in a boring. I guess it'd be done in a boring way. But she did leave the Salem 7. The people who are pursuing her are the children of the witches of the coven
witches who died, and now they're feral, right? Like they raised themselves.
Well, they're consumed by revenge.
I'm very curious about how magic works in a universe that has. It's the same universe as Thor and Black Widow, all of these. And I have not seen an Avengers movie. I am really impressed with myself that I know a lot of the references, though, like Ragnarok. Yeah, I know that.
And Thor's world is something that the comics had done was sort of super science. So you could just sort of he's less of a. He calls himself a god. People call himself God, but him and Loki, you could say, are sort of very advanced alien life forms or something. Who they don't, there's ways to spin that if you were really trying to avoid. But effectively with WandaVision, I would say they moved out of any sort of sci-fi into clear. She does magic. So magic. When they even retcon. So again, if you're a geek like me, you were screaming when Agatha says that was a probability hex because that's her power, which previously everyone was saying you'll never see that because it's silly. The idea that you can change the probability of something. So she made a bomb that could go off a dud. So there's a probability of the bomb. Let's say it's 1,000,000 to 1 or something that might happen. She can make the probability 1 to 1. That was her power. Which is magic. So that was originally. So sorry. So the slight digression. So that was in the comics. She is a mutant in the comics, and so mutants have powers and everything. So certain things would be advanced healing. Wolverine, that's a mutant. That's an advanced human. Okay, controlling the weather. We're gonna. That's a stage of evolution that I can control the weather. like reading minds. I could get how telepathy works. All right, but like what? Like, and then came the Scarlet Witch. It's like she's a mutant and she has the power to change. Probably what? How does that's I think that's magic.
That is magic.
And so they'd introduce Agatha Harkness in the comics, and she was sort of a mentor to Wanda. Sort of what
That's
we've
what I
seen.
thought. That's what I thought.
And to your point, to see sort of true magic presented was really cool. So now it's just like, no, this is actual. They're doing magic. Magic
And there's
exists.
different kinds of witches too. They need Sashir Zameda. Oh, how nice is it to see Sashir Zameda again? Like,
You know, she's wonderful and she's great in
oh,
this.
oh,
My
I loved her on
face, my
Saturday Night Live.
formerly perfect face.
And
I've
Patty
often
LaPone,
said
I'm like,
that. My formerly perfect face.
here's Patty LaPone again doing more genre TV because Patty LaPone has done a lot of.
She was great in this. She's such a she's just it's I love it. It's spooky. It has well in it yeah, what you're saying with Evil Witches, I think what has been that appeal, like even again, we get the storytales like the Graham Fair, so like the eating babies and stuff like that, and the scaries. And obviously, a lot of it is just like we're really scared of women who live alone, right? Like
Big
there are little
noses,
things. Yeah, we're and
big
Jews.
phallic noses.
We're scared of Jewish women. We're scared of women who live alone. We look a lot of that stuff. We're scared. We, you know, the voodoo is scared of Black women. We think that they're practicing certain things or whatever, and they play on this as well, where the implication that a white man took this Black witch's powers, stuff like that. So they play on a lot of that, but it's there is something compelling about it, especially with Angelique essentially having, you know, being from a Black place, Martinique. So she was essentially
Angelique should have been Black. How fascinating would that have been in the 1991 series if she had been Black and then they had done another season where she showed up to, I don't know, be Cassandra or whatever. And Roger, even in 1990, to have the scion of the Collins family marry a Black woman would have been so interesting. I mean, they could have, I don't know if they would have. I don't know if they were
no.
really thinking about,
It
let's
was
dig into
still
like social issues, but it would have been so fascinating.
well, it was still controversial at the time. There are certain things of with the fiction. You know, there was an old I think Batman comic from like late 80s, and they're talking about how um someone, you know, there was some, you know, someone was murdered and one of the suspects was Black. It's like, oh, was she involved in him? It's like, oh, she was into things, but I don't think something like that. And you're really like, oh, wow. Like, but it was still presented as something, which how queerness was, the idea that someone would be gay was going to contradict the ever. So the idea of the sort of within a generation, that sort of normality in media is why you get a lot of angry white people voting for Trump, because the world has really changed for the better for a lot of
And
minorities
quickly, and
and
quickly,
quickly.
fast.
I think it's great that it's twofold, so that young you can identify this kid, the young you out there can identify with Wiccan and Billy and who he is and what he's going through. But young me can also identify, like, it's not about it in a sort of way, he's queer, but it's, I can relate to a queer person without it be like, no, he's into all the stuff that I am, and that's cool. We'd be friends, and you could be, oh, he's me. It is like, oh, it's just so great to see that sort of representation of like who he is and his relationship with his, you know, it's wonderful to see that relationship, but it's also a healthy relationship, a good friendship. It's sort of, which also is great to see. Two young men who are really close and friends and supportive of each other is a great thing to see. I love that they are sort of doing that. And like what he wants is to, often the theory is that what people want is a lie. That is sort of the right, the idea in fiction, like what you start with your hero, your protect wanting something, but ideally what they want is not what they want is a lie. They shouldn't really want this, and they learn they don't want it. So in a tragedy, they never learn. That's the wrong thing. Gatsby never realizes that he shouldn't. This is BS. but like the more fulfilling work they do realize. So I'm curious as to what, because it seems like, well, will he realize that bringing his brother, what is he trying to fill by bringing his brother back that
Will
isn't
somebody
existing?
have to die for his brother to live too?
Yes,
Well, which is interesting. Yeah. How many episodes are left? 2 or 3?
there's one, and then
One on Halloween.
the 30th is next week. So yes, so 2
Yeah.
more. There's 3
Yeah.
episodes total, and there's 2, and so I'm excited about them. There's theories that Audrey Plaza's character is Death, and so the
I keep
idea is
reading
that
that. I don't know what that means. Is it like literal death? Like she's
there is a Marvel character called Lady Death
oh,
who and sort of the manifestation of death could also be the
that's
idea
cool.
that the person who takes people to the afterlife, so sort of
Mm.
like death as
It's like
a
Mr. Best.
Uber,
Is it like
yeah,
a Mr. Bestian?
exactly, like death as a Uber driver. It's like, hey, I'm going, I've got some
Oh,
water,
that is reductive.
I've got some waters back there for a ride to the
Please leave a
afterlife.
rating. Please rate me.
Or what you, death is sometimes terrible, like so sort of like oh man, so where in the afterlife are you going? Have you been? I don't know, I've never been there, I'm from out of town. You're the driver, I'm paying you, can you please, I can't help, you need to find this out. Like, oh, so which direction are we going? What are you talking about? Death, this is you, you've done this before, right? Okay, let's,
I am
all right.
not tipping you.
No, exactly. But yeah, so there's a scene where she's like, you can't kill me, it's against the rules, and it's more the idea that death cannot literally intervene. And so when she and Agatha have been traveling, it's like literally they've been traveling together on work trips. So when they're on the Hindenburg or then on the Titanic, because death knows when it's coming, because
Yeah.
that's her job, right? So she shows up, but she's not responsible. She didn't put the iceberg there. She's just showing up and like, yeah, I think you're all
You
gonna die
guys aimed
soon.
the boat at it.
Exactly. So um what else are you working on that's spooky and scary that we should tell folks about?
Oh gosh. That was and that stumps me. That's the question that stumps me. Oh golly. That is accessible for people around the world. Nothing new. I have some things I've submitted and put out into the world, so you can think good thoughts for me. Um, Black Forest has been showing up in Barnes and Nobles around the
Oh,
world
wonderful.
recently, which is really thoughtful. Thank you, Barnes and Noble. I'm really popular in Canada right now at a bookstore called Chapters, which I think is the Canadian equivalent of Barnes and Noble. They keep ordering copies, so yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
great.
thanks. So if you are into dark academia, there we go. Dark academia. Where's my name? There's my name. Dark academia, queer horror, demons, ghosts, gothic stuff. Um, Pick you up a copy of Black Forest. It's available wherever fine books are sold.
Is this a filmable
I
theater?
think so. I always thought if you really wanted to be a famous author, you had to write something that could become a theme park or a action figure or a Halloween costume. And I would love to see um, Nathan Halloween costumes. Black Forest Land would be a lovely theme park.
An
Oh, I love it.
awesome an awesome
Somebody,
dark ride.
yeah, I can picture it in my head. I would love it if this would become a movie. So,
My son turned 10. We went to Disneyland in February, and I'd never been. And I thought, yeah, I'm gonna, but it's wonderful because I love theater. So of course, so many of the dark rides are the theatrical Pirates of the Caribbean, and we saw the Rise of the Resistance and stuff like that. And it was like, this is so. This is like the immersive theater is my jam. So it's wonderful. But yes, I love spooky things. I love ghost stories and so forth. And yes, I think if you ever did an Audible, it would be what, because I love turn the lights off, hear someone tell a spooky story is still one of
Yeah.
my
Yeah, well, if
favorite
you find
things.
yourself in Missoula, if anyone finds themselves in Missoula, Montana this weekend, my friend Gwen and I are gonna be reading ghost
Oh yes,
stories.
I'll drop the information for there. Who knows? I might have some readers
Yeah, who
and viewers
knows?
in
That'd be great if
Missoula.
anybody wants to follow me. Everything is by Laramie Dean, Instagram on my website and everything else too.
Great.
So
Well, thank you for kicking off the Halloween season with me, Laramie Dean. Like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you next time. Take care.